Hello, hello, my beloved waking gods and goddesses. Welcome to Love, Truth, and Beauty. This is episode 363. Marja West here with a very, very naughty on the sly replay of my interview on Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking podcast on Revolution Radio, which was recorded, live streamed on the 20th of November. And the reason why I'm doing this is because at y'all's request, because you can't seem to follow directions other than clicking all the way through, I'm just going to make it easy because this is an important podcast, my loves, where Rick and we talk about the gynocracy, the female feminine superiority that is actually running the shit shows on the planet, also known as the powers that want to be fronted by the patriarchy, fronted by all the shit stems, and we think the boys are doing it. So we're going to be talking about a lot of things that are controversial, a lot of things that may appear to be novel ideas. I'm going to have a reading list below and some links to Michael Tsarian's specific programs regarding the Dragon Mother and also regarding the female Illuminati. And I really highly recommend that y'all who want to dive deep in this, that you get on to his Unslaved podcast, his Unslaved website, and you sign up for a monthly subscription that you pay into. Well worth it, my loves. We need to get this conversation going, and I am doing exactly that. And we're going to dive into the nature of the relationship, romantic, sexual, industrial complex that is at the helm of the war between the sexes, the war between the masculine and feminine, men and women, women against women, and men going their own way. And who can blame them? All right, so I'm going to have timestamps below so you can hop around and skip intros, etc. We're going to be talking about the importance of shadow work, the importance of doing the ancestral shadow work, because the mind control begins at our conception and gets promoted in utero, my loves. So, all right, sit back, enjoy.
See how the trouble you've had it? Be they the government, be they industry, be they organized labor, be they anyone, or human beings. When the operation of the thinking becomes so obvious, make them so thick and hard that you can't take part. You can't even passively take part. And you've got to put your bodies upon the kingers and upon the leaders, upon the leaders.
Radio at freedomslips.com, the #1 listener-supported talk radio station, throwing ourselves upon the gears of the machine. Revolution Radio, where information never sleeps.
Call down the thunder will now you die.
Welcome to Rites, I've Been Thinking. What's this show all about? Well, it's all in the title. He enjoys interviewing people about issues that he finds interesting, and which cause him to sit back and think. Cryptocurrency, true crime, natural law, the occult. No topic is off limits here. He has always enjoyed when people give their points of view or thoughts on different topics that they have researched. And what makes it all great is that it's their unique take on what is being discussed. For that reason alone, it makes it interesting to him. So take that walk down to his crypt. Make yourself comfortable. And just maybe he will be discussing a topic that you have been thinking about. Here's your host, Trip Rick.
Welcome, everybody. What day is it? Of course, if you are listening to the show, it is Monday, as usual. And I hope everybody had a great weekend and they're having the start to a great week. I know I am, so I hope everybody else is as well. As I say, Mondays are amazing. I've always looked forward to Mondays, and why I tell you guys all the time. Why do I look forward to Mondays? Because it's a new week, new challenges, new goals to achieve. And that's how I've always looked at a Monday. It's always a fresh start, and you can forget about a lot what happened last week, and then you can kind of start with a clean slate. So I know a lot of people hate Mondays. I've never been one of those people, which probably annoys a lot of people that I don't hate Mondays, but I don't. I look forward to it. And I also look forward to it because I get to do this show every week and come and speak with you guys and bring some amazing guests on to discuss, I think, which are extremely important topics. Especially what's going on in the world. So much is out of sync. So much thing is reversed. Black is white. White is black. It's crazy. When I see it, I just keep thinking, how can it get any worse? And it just seems to nudge worse and nudge worse. And I just really, truly believe people in general are just lost right now. Not everybody. I don't want to ever blanket statement, because then people would say I'm blanket statement. I'm not. There is some people that have got this figured out and are moving towards a more positive direction, but a lot aren't, guys. I mean, they just aren't. And I see it. I talk to people as much as I can in person, and I interact with as many people as I can. I like to get a gauge of where people are at. And a lot of the times, just going to a popular YouTube channel or something like that have a lot of people in the chat room, and you're going to read the chats, and you're going to get to me, that's a great gauge of where people's mindsets are, especially on the topic, whatever they're discussing. And you start reading the comment section, you're just like, you get a great idea and peek into what people are really thinking, because, usually in the chats, they just let everything go. They don't, they just hide behind it and let everything fly. So, but before we go ahead and get the show on the road, I always let you guys know, Revolution Radio, listener supported, guys. It is so important. It is you and your donations and generosity that keep us here doing our shows, all of us hosts every day of the week. We wouldn't be here without you. That is the truth. And we have to keep it that way. We have to keep it listener supported, because as soon as you start bringing in big money and other companies, then they start to get a say in what all of us can speak about. And that is where we are with all these other platforms. And people are getting censored. Their topics are being censored. And that is not happening here. Any topic can be discussed. Total freedom of speech. And that, especially now, guys, is worth fighting for more than ever. And I mean, how can you do that? You can do that by donating. It doesn't have to be a huge donation. Even the small ones add up. Many different ways you can donate. Just head over to revolution.radio. There's a donation section, and they will show you all the different ways. There's snail mail. There is cryptocurrency, if that's what you're covered and you like doing. So there's Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum. There is Patreon. Tons of different ways. Direct pay. So figure out the one that works best for you and show your support and keep us here doing this, because we wouldn't be here without you. And I'll always say that every week, because I do value each and every one of you, and people who take the time to come here, listen and donate, and make sure that at least freedom has a chance, truth has a chance. And that is so powerful right now. And we're losing it. We're losing it every day. It's a little step back. And you can't even get into topics at all on these other big platforms like YouTube and that. You can't. They just censor everything. And you really notice it when you do a show like this, where you don't have to worry about it. And then you do a show on YouTube or some of these other platforms, and you can feel that you're censoring yourself. And you're subconsciously, your mind is like, I can't say this, I can't say it this way. Then you're getting into code words and different, and it's just not freedom, guys. This is freedom. This is how it's supposed to be, where people can come, share their opinions, share their thoughts, and that is the way it should be. So thank you, guys. Anyways, off my soapbox I go. And ready? So we got a great guest lined up. I'm excited. We're going to get into a sensitive topic, and this is one I have been thinking about. People ask me, Rick, what are you thinking about? Well, this is what I've been thinking about. What is going on with relationships and the roles in relationships? This is something I'm starting to see, and I talk to people more and more about. It's a really crazy thing. And then I want to get into the feminist movement. When did it start? How did it start? How was it sold at the very early inception of it to women? And how it's progressed over the years. It's just this is something I've been really thinking about, because you see guys, and I talk to people that are single, and they don't even want to date anymore. They're like, I don't even know my role. Like, a lot of the guys I talk to are not dating because they don't know their role in the relationship. If they're too masculine, then they're bullying or they're suppressing the woman, or, you know, you've all heard it. And then if they're too feminine, then they're a bitch and they're a wimp and they're all of these things. So men are just, the ones I'm talking to, a lot of them are just giving up. They're like, I'm done. I don't know my role. And I'm sure, you know, I get it, but I mean, it's not the answer just to stop dating. But you look at the way the relationships are, the family structures are, and it's really disturbing. Like, you just see the divorce rate skyrocketing. People are having less kids. You know, there's less successful marriages. And this is only within like maybe the last 50, 100 years, where, you know, now people are married for a year or two. And as soon as somebody's a little bit unhappy, hey, don't try to work it out. Don't, you know, stick by your partner, bail. That's a lot easier because your feelings are, you know, you're acting on feelings. And I just don't think that's the way to go. And it's a big topic. So anyways, I want to break it down with my guest. I'm excited to have her on. She has a YouTube channel. You can find her definitely on YouTube and other places, which I will let her tell you about at the end of the show. Love, Truth, and Beauty. Marja West, welcome to the show. I want to dive into this topic with you.
Hi, Rick. How are you?
I'm great. And you can tell I'm excited because this is I think we're going to be really diving into something big here that I'm starting to see, as I was just explaining to people. And I know that you were around to see the feminist movement grow.
I've been around for a long while. So,
right.
Okay.
What is going on? How is this sold to women at the beginning?
Well, so the feminist movement, I thought, really did a great thing when we go back to the rights for women to vote, if you do that kind of thing. I don't vote, so it doesn't bother me whatsoever. However, that was the sort of inception of it. Okay. And, you know, the right to work, the right to vote, the right to work, the right to have a say. And somehow, after World War II, something happened, okay? Something happened that has a lot to do with cultural Marxism, and there was an infiltration that started happening in the U.S., in universities, in media, etc. And so from my personal stance, when I was at university, I started university when I was 15, 16 years old. And I was in what I call the San Francisco Bay Area at that time. So we're talking the mid-70s. And I went to a very liberal, very progressive state university. And I was a science major, and I got recruited by second wave feminists. So they looked at me because I'm an immigrant, I'm a woman of color, I'm young, I'm super smart, I can do math and science. So I checked off a lot of boxes.
Right.
And so they invited me to join the Women's Studies program as an additional major to what I was studying, which was astronomy and physics. And I thought it was kind of a cool thing, but it slowly and surely and clearly appeared to me that, wow, you're treating me like I'm a victim, like I don't know anything, like I'm some dimwit human being that needs a head start. Now, at that time, there was a thing called affirmative action that was giving minorities, a minority class people a head start, like I needed one. I was a straight A student. It's like, stop it already. So I saw this and I just kind of started rolling my eyes and started in this sort of, I've always been a provocateur. I've always been a little bit adversarial. I don't follow the trends. I'm not all about pop culture. If you tell me that this is popular, I'm going to do the opposite. And that is exactly what I did. I was not cooperative. I saw it as a ploy of a lot of middle-aged, middle-class white women whose marriages went to shit, for lack of a better way to say it, and discovered the universities, discovered that they could channel their anger, and perhaps, thanks to cultural Marxism, be able to somehow influence and channel their rage and their disappointment on and on and on, and influence some young people. What I was seeing the disintegration of the family. I was seeing a divide and conquer, not just between women, but between men and women more so. So I witnessed a polarization of women. You were either the stoned out hippie chick, or you were the housewife, or there was a new breed, a woman who could do it all. Okay, she could get stoned. She can have as many lovers as she can possibly have because of the advent of the birth control pill. Okay, so the level playing field, the sexual playing field had gotten leveled. Okay, and so there was a rise in abortion, the right to choose, the right to do this, the right to not have children, the right to leave your husband, the right to abandon your children. Now, I know I sound very harsh, but I sound very harsh because it did not jive with my values of self-responsibility, regardless of whether you're a man or woman. Be responsible for yourself. If you're going to have children, be responsible for your children. If you're going to have a relationship, be above board. And what I witnessed just a lot of effing around, a lot of dishonesty, a lot of entitlement from men, from women. So this isn't just about a man and a woman thing either colliding. It's about everything going insane, such that what I deemed as family values were just being thrown out the window.
I agree.
And I learned this firsthand. I was married twice. I raised stepchildren. Their father had abandoned them to become a Hare Krishna. So Jacob returned a year later after I had his kids and was Johari. And the mother of his kids was in prison for white crimes, white collar crimes. So it was just a virtual shit show, pardon my French, of this disintegration that affected me personally because, you know, here I was just watching this going, what is going on? And not that I came from a whole family. I did not. I grew up without a father, and I grew up and was raised by a be all that you can be tough woman who was PhD level, drop dead gorgeous, and used all of her feminine wiles to her advantage, and also instilled in me that you don't need a man. Why would you want a man? They're flakes. So the polarity of men is either being flaky or being predators. That's what I grew up with. And I don't believe it for 1 nanosecond. Okay. So that's kind of like my introduction here to my stance on feminism. But I think we have to go back even further.
Let's do that. Yeah. I want to get to the root of this.
Okay. Because as we know, this war of the sexes has been going on for millennia. Now, one of the things that I did over the years is that I was very interested in archaeology, anthropology, our history, our prehistory. Now, there is a book that I came upon that the universe has a way of just sort of supporting any conversation that you are having with other people or within your head, things that you are pondering.
Yeah, information seems to find you. When I notice that synchronicity when I'm looking into stuff else, sudden all this information and people start showing up.
Yeah. So one of the things that I was confused about is, just the whole, because during my tenure, if you will, at university, and then graduating and being out in the workforce and doing it all, raising stepkids, having a job, having a career, evolving that career to the vocation of what I'm doing, right now that I've been doing. I'm going into my 38th year of hand-holding trauma survivors of the most egregious of human atrocities. So I've been run through the mill. So I've had the opportunity, and here I am in my mid-60s, having observed this stuff and wondering, how did this all happen? And, you know, there is such a loose reference to the love and light only matriarchy and how the patriarchy is so oppressive. Okay, we can go back in history and you will get this you know, this narrative that talks about men as being the predators, they're the murderers, they are the, you know, on and on and on, they're violent. And yet at the same time, yes, when you look at that, who are these men serving? They are serving who? The masters.
Right.
All right. Soldiers are essentially slaves. They're honorary slaves, but they're slaves nonetheless. And then there are the women. There are the women who are supposedly the victims. Okay. I don't see it that way. Because when you look at our history, a lot of these battles, a lot of these kingdoms, a lot of these wars were fought to defend the honor of some woman, some monarch, okay? And so as I was delving into this, I came upon this book called The Myth of the Matriarchal Prehistory. It's by Cynthia Eller. And the subtitle is Why an Invented Past Won't Give Women a Future. Okay. And so I started diving more and more into this over the years. And what I discovered is, wow. Because, you know, with New Age BS and the goddess sector of love and light only, and oh, we women, we're just so fabulous and we're not culpable for anything because we are goddesses. Okay. So imagine. Okay, and I'm just putting it out there for all of us to be a little curious about how this has happened.
Right.
What if women in prehistory discovered that their menstrual cycles were aligned with the moon cycles? And what if women of that time used that as a tool, a ploy, a way to trick the common man into believing that they are in fact super beings, goddesses,
Right.
goddesses from above, who are in fact the cosmos themselves. Okay? And what if the men couldn't see that there was a correlation between the sex act and pregnancy? Because they were out warring, or they were out foraging, they were out providing for the family unit, for the villages, right? What if women occulted the fact that they're actually human and that this bleeding cycle gives them the power to make babies, but the BS that they are selling, that is, that they are in fact being impregnated by gods and not the men around them, but by the ancestors of such men? Okay, what if this was all a ploy? So I started thinking about that. I'm like, wow, that is really crazy. And when you start looking at how back in prehistory, we were nomads, we wandered around, and then all of a sudden we're settling, we're being more stationary, we're tilling the land, we're working the land, men are leaving, they're coming back, the to and from, there's no correlation between the sex act and birthing, okay? And women are trying to occult this to make it seem like they're supernatural, okay? So I'm just going to leave it at that.
That's interesting. Well, I'm just thinking as you're saying that, Marja, that you hear about that in history, that you know, these women were giving birth to demigods, right? Like a god came down and impregnated them, and now they're and that I never thought of it this angle, like how you could sell that to the man of society.
So imagine that, and imagine that there was a split with women. There were the women who wanted to come clean, and the other women who didn't want to go there, did not want to come clean to the men to let them know how it really, really, really was. What if that split created the split between the feminine of light and integrity and then the dark feminine? The dark feminine, the Gynocracy, who is going to use all of her feminine wiles and more and elevate her above men, above these women, above humanity, as if she is superior, because she really believes that she is superior.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this has been referred to as the start of the Gynocracy. I haven't heard that many people talk about it. Michael Tessarian talks about it in his Female Illuminati series and his other series regarding feminism. People,
you have to break that down, because I don't think a lot of people have even heard that word, Marja.
Yes, well, it basically is female superiority, elevating the feminine to deity status, not human, deity status, and it is a big fat lie. So I'm going to leave that. So one of the things that I looked at, because I studied comparative religion, and I also looked into a lot of the archaeological findings and anthropological. And so the myth of this love and light only matriarchy, imagine my surprise when I was running into this book and that book, and I can make a list for all the listeners to check it out themselves, and to discover the violent nature of women, because not only are women the bringers of light, they are the death sentence. They are the death carriers. And when you start understanding that a lot of these goddess priestess temples were actually sacrificial altars, where sacrifices, baby sacrifices, animal sacrifices, blood ritual sacrifices. Now, I am not talking satanic here, okay? We're not talking about Satan or the devil or any of that, okay? Because people, there's no such thing as Satan, and there's no such thing as the devil. So let's just be very clear. I'm not coming from that. I'm just talking about the willful destruction of life, simply because you can take life away. And the thirstiness of these women in prehistory. Okay, so that's one part. All right. Now imagine the discovery that men discovered that, oh wow, we have been lied to. Can you imagine what kind of ruckus that might have created way back when?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, can you imagine the onslaught of reprimands or vengeance? Okay, we want to talk about what evil is. It's all of the shadow emotions: vengeance, rage, betrayal, hate, all of that. Okay, so I believe that the onslaught, or the inception, if you will, of the patriarchy occurred at that discovery, when men finally connected the dots, going, oh wow, okay, I'm not quite sure about the paternity of my child here. I don't think it was from a god. I think it was probably my brother. And so I believe that a lot of the matriarchy, patriarchy, and that setup had a lot to do improving paternity of the children born under the guise of secrecy, deception by these women who thought themselves to be superior to men and to the other women who wanted to come clean. So I'm just putting this out there, okay? Just kind of as an alternative storyline narrative. And, what I love about these books is that these books were written by feminist researchers who were searching for evidence that they were right about the love and light only matriarchy, that they were right about how the patriarchy has subdued women. I think the patriarchy got created in reaction to the BS that these dark feminists, these first dark feminists, were trying to pull.
Right.
That's what I think.
It's kind of like an immune system response.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, and then I could definitely see, Marja, how you're saying that like, this is interesting, because and I always say that to people, you have to start open a history book and start looking in the back look in history and start looking for patterns, and you're going to get a lot of answers of what's happening or how we got to where we are now. And that's why I'm really glad that we're breaking down, because it didn't start in the 50s and 60s. It was pushed, but this has been going on for,
It did not.
Exactly.
And so, so that whole background, when you bring it forward, okay, and you start looking at our occulted history, I started noticing some amazing things, especially looking at the Knights Templar, looking at the Masonic, looking at the founding of the United States. People are talking about the Masons. I mean, when you look at the Masons, okay, and you look at their symbology, it is a front for a goddess cult that's fronted by men. And you're going to look it up. You can research it yourself. I'm not gonna just go down that. It is very, very lengthy. But I invite everyone, do your own research. Check it out.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be very, very surprised. We think that we're in this patriarchal thing. We're not. We are not. The Gynocracy is a dark feminine cult, and it is running the powers that want to be, and they want it that way because it's easier. It's easy for them to do their thing if they can just perpetuate the notion that it's all men's fault.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And so if we fast forward to where we're at now, you look at the breakdown of the family system, you look at the breakdown, the divide and conquer between have and have not, you look at the divide and conquer between women, between the real feminists who are all about equality, okay? This is not entitled equality. This is about being a good person, a big human being with a big heart and having compassion and empathy and combining resources, combining talents, okay? Now, the masculine feminine energies that animates both men and women, okay, part of the divide and conquer is to divvy up those roles. And of course we're going to be confused, because if a man's role is strictly like this or a woman's role is strictly like that and it's not happening, you're going to perpetuate a war. And so my invitation is for all of us to, take a breath, receive a breath, and to notice what stirs within, okay? Because I work with a lot of men and women who are survivors of trauma-based mind control, survivors of trafficking, survivors of what's called SRA, survivors of the manipulation of all three of the Abrahamic religions. Okay, because what is the real Satanism? The real Satanism isn't a bunch of people dressed up as devils. Please. It is the egregious violence and control, divide, and burning, raising throughout the centuries of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. And it's still happening today. I mean, check out what's going on, you know where. I'm not going to drop those words because we all know. And when you start understanding that these mind controls are still in place, it actually gives us an opportunity to step back and to extricate our attention from those divides and start looking within. Okay? Mm-hmm. Now, when I work with trauma survivors, one of the first things that we do is we look to what was going on prenatally, okay? Because when we look at the mind control doesn't just happen all of a sudden. No. It takes time, yeah. And it starts the moment we are conceived.
Agreed.
Because if we are not gifted with a mother and father who have completed their shadow work and have awakened from the slumber of being slaves in the matrix and have extricated themselves and have exited the matrix so that they can conceive consciously and start a family consciously, okay, we're in a big mess because most of us were not birthed that way. We were not conceived that way, okay? And within our mother's wombs, we're not just absorbing the nutrients from the food that she eats, from the chemicals that she ingests. We are also being bathed in all of her stuff, generational, tribal, not to mention the father's influence. Right. Okay, so our mind control starts at conception and continues throughout our gestation in the womb. So we women, we have a lot to answer for, okay? And you can look at child development. Michael Tsarian has a wonderful program about the dragon mother and about the development, the programming that happens in the womb. I highly, highly recommend it. Get the paid subscription to his platform and start diving in, okay? Because this is important work. And the fact that a man was able to like really wade through all of the occulted material and the BS that is out there that wants to perpetually keep women as victims of the patriarchy of men. And you start realizing, wow, okay, yeah, this is some serious distortion here that needs to get sorted. Okay, so I have spent my entire life trying to sort out my own thing, only to realize that, wow, okay, this is happening within me. And that's why I like to talk about it, because I have actually gone step by step to witness some of the shit that I was responsible for in occulting my own truth and succumbing to this programmed way of being because I'm a woman and I'm a certain kind of woman and therefore I have certain powers. We women are programmed to actually believe this stuff or we're programmed to do the exact opposite. Either way, it's part of the ploy of the gynocracy, because the gynocracy wants to divide and conquer even amongst its own sisters.
That's a big one. That's
Yeah.
yeah, like you're bringing
It's
up
huge.
such great. It's huge, yeah, Marianne. Because I'm like you're breaking down so much, and I'm just thinking about what you're saying, because I like I said, I love history, and a lot of the times you'll hear you hear it all the time that men have been suppressing women and keeping women down and all of that. But when you start
Yeah.
looking at history, you start to realize there's been a lot of powerful women throughout history.
Yeah.
You know, and wars, like queens had immense
Oh,
power
yeah.
over the king. Like,
Yeah.
it's this flip that they've done where like
Yeah.
no, all women are been suppressed.
Inverted.
It's inverted.
Completely inverted.
Yeah, and that's what they don't tell you. It's like there's there's always been powerful women in history, and they don't really highlight that as
Yeah.
much as they should, and they try to blame the man for keeping everybody down. And I mean, we got so to unpack here, because it just, you're bringing up great points and so many important points because of that I look at how we are now, and I'm fascinated that we're diving into how we got here, because like you said, this didn't happen overnight. This is something that's been going on and nurtured for ever. You know, wow.
And so, like, with the advent of media, when we look at the beginnings of television and the beginnings of motion pictures, you know, a lot of the archetypes for women, you know, she's the femme fatale, or she's like the helpless Hannah, you know, she's the damsel in distress. Help me, save me, please. It's like, oh, wow. So, and then you start going into the sort of glamour sectors of, say, the 30s and 40s, where you had these drop dead gorgeous women who were using their feminine wiles and their beauty and their sensuality and sexuality to manipulate a man. This is nothing new. This is nothing new. I mean, you go back throughout our history, and between the fashion trends of either accentuating your boobs or your butt, or just being completely exposed, like what's going on now, anything goes. What is at the forefront? The manipulation of men's senses, because, you know, men are out of control sexually. Whoa, they're out of control. Well, the women are doing it. They're doing it. Women, as in the beauty industry, the fashion industry, the modeling industry, the movie industry, music industry, they are making literal fortunes from their looks, and they're doing it purposefully. Now, I'm not poo-pooing that, but we just have to be aware of what is actually going on and not be such dimwits, you know, not be so naive. It's being done on purpose. And part of, I think, what's going on with men is that I don't blame men for being terrified of women. They should, with good reason, because a lot of the women that I know who have not done their shadow work, who are not integrated, they will run over their own sister to get to the coveted billionaire. I mean, there was that whole thing when with Trump derangement syndrome way back when, not that long ago, back in 2016, the whole pea grabbing situation, you know, where all the feminists were up in arms that he was grabbing. No, okay. I know what actually goes on, because I know some of these women, they will actually take a guy's hand and put it all over their body as an invitation. So there's a polarity between the femme fatale vixen and the very unattractive, overweight, overly angry feminist type. I know I'm offending people, and, you know, get over it, okay? Because if you don't see how these archetypes are being played against each other and against men, you are sound asleep at the wheel. Yeah. And this is entertainment for pop culture. and it creates more divide and conquer. You know, that movement, the you too movement. I call it you tool. You know, I can wear whatever I want. You know, it's like, no, actually, you need to put more consciousness into what you are doing and take responsibility. Because just like there are women who are out of control, there are men who are out of control.
For sure.
Okay?
Yep.
I mean, this is not a man-woman thing. This is all about the lack of shadow work being done, the neediness to affirm your worth based on whatever is outside you. You need that reflection to own your worth, to feel good about yourself. I mean, this all goes down to basic psychology. And that basic psychology, that basic integration, all of that harm starts within the mother's womb. And
That's
so,
fascinating.
yeah.
It really is, because I've interviewed women that talk about this. So I'm glad that you kind of dove into this, Marja, because I think a lot of people think that it kind of starts when the baby's born, like actually delivered into the world. And I learned, because I'm a man, I mean, how many guys really think about this? I mean, it's not something we think about, but when you start talking to women that speak about what you're speaking about, you start to realize that this connection when a mother conceives it's immediate. And they're selling it as, no, it's just a pile of cells, it's just goo, it's just, and then they argue over that. But
then we can murder them. We can murder them easily, because they're not anything. They're just a blob of cells. I mean, it's obnoxious. It is, that to me is evil. That is evil. And and of course that has been hijacked into, you know, my body, my choice. If I want to, I can. Every cell in my body is repulsed by that attitude.
And you hear that all the time. Yeah, my body, my choice, and then a lot of the times a man, like the woman, has the final say, and whatever goes on during the pregnancy, men are being. I know guys that have, like, they during their partner's pregnancy, they had no say in anything. Like it was like the guy's like, oh no, it's
very, very sad. And I'm going to come clean. I've had multiple abortions over my life.
Okay.
And I have to tell you, I regret every single one. I regret my irresponsibility. I regret my immaturity, because to this day, here it is, many, many years, decades later, I still feel the psychic bond to those babies. And so I live with that every single day. And I regret it. And I have to face that every time it comes up. You know, it's better, the self-forgiveness is there, but the willful ignorance that I have to own, that I own up to, it's a pretty heavy load.
Sure. And I've heard that, Marja, from other women too, that have had abortions, and what's strange, and I've heard women say exactly what you say, that, you know, over the years that never goes away. Like the rough edges kind of get smoothed out, but it's always there. And I've interviewed women that have said it on my show. They're like, this still affects me, and there's even years and years later. And what I found interesting is that men, even, it affects the men when their women do it. Like a lot of, like, even the men are like, there's damage being done. I don't know how to word it, but even for the man, if a woman goes through.
Absolutely. And this is part of that blatant dismissal of the gynocracy of men, that you know, you're not even really donors, because we are higher beings than you, and we're being impregnated by the gods anyway. You know, I mean, it's really quite sick when you boil it down.
Yeah, and it's evil when you start looking at it. It really, you see what they're like. When you start to see how they've done and steered this over the years. I mean, it's amazing. I get now why relationships are where they are, and people are just lost. It's really an evil plan when you kind of see it. And I've seen it even in my lifetime. I've seen. Because I came from a family that had my original, like my mom and then my dad, like, you know, both my parents in the home. And I've always said I was very blessed because I had a stay-at-home mother who took the time till I got into high school to be there, and she did all the things that a traditional back in those days a mother would do. She raised a family, and I want to get into this because I think this is so important that women have to realize that this is such an important job, probably the most important job, I would say.
Absolutely, the most important.
But they've devalued it. They've made it seem like if a woman stays at home, raises the children, and all of that, that this is a bad thing, and this is this inversion they're doing.
Yeah, and the feminists did that. The men did not do that. The feminists did it. You know, dangled the proverbial carrot of, you know, basically saying, look, the grass is green on the other side, you know. And I know so many women, for myself, I did it all. You know, I raised them. I did all the cooking. I did all the shopping. I made the money. You know, it was exhausting.
I can imagine, yeah.
But do I regret doing it? Absolutely not. Even though my stepkids were not my birth kids, I was responsible for them. There was no way. I am not the kind of person that's going to flake on a responsibility to do my own selfish thing. And that is what a lot of, I think, the sort of second wave feminists, the third wave feminists, you know, the sex positive, you know, I'm going to do whatever I want, whenever I want, and you just deal with it. It's just promoting selfishness.
Right. Yeah, that's huge right now, selfishness. And you hear that just by how people talk, that, you know, even when they have a family, it's not really about the family structure. It's all about how they're feeling and what's making them happy. And I just really think that, you know, to have a successful family, you got to kind of put, like, I'm only speaking from what I saw in my family structure. You know, my mom, for a while, because she was a mother, she had to kind of put things on the back burner that I'm sure she would have probably been wanting to do, but she really dug into being a mother and being the best mother she could. And she showed up. Yeah. And it wasn't, you know, and I'm sure, like, you know, I just think if I was to bring a child into the world, that would be my number one priority. Like, you know, that's where all my resources would go to.
Yeah. Here.
And I just think, and it's so important. And you look at how family structures now are falling apart. If there's even really any family structure left, really, and I'm always asking, how did we get here? Like, something has happened over time where they've dismantled that. And I've always believed that the family structure is the most powerful, a healthy family, and they know this. They know this is why they have to destroy it.
Yeah. Well, my generation is a mess. I think my generation are probably the worst parents ever, because we grew up during the realm of rock and roll, the realm of being all you can be, the realm of the divide and conquer, the realm of woman power. I mean, I associate that whole thing with women power. You know, the fist up, but you know, the fist giving the finger to the family, giving the finger to responsibility. It's all about selfishness. It's all about me, and me. And you, my child, are an extension of me. And, you know, you better not disappoint me. And so I saw a lot of this. And it's really, really unfortunate, because there's a lot of damage. And then, of course, when we're talking about the programming, the mind control starting in the womb, okay, that gets passed down from one pregnancy to the next, to the next, to the next. And if that shadow work is not done, you're just passing it down. And that's what we have. We have a lot of broken mothers and fathers, broken people who are emotionally stunted, who didn't develop, didn't mature past the age of 7.
I hear this so much. That you just said that, I've heard that so many times from people that people are stunted in their maturity. Like it's like, you know, they're like still children. They act like children. They have the emotions of a child. They react. They're like stunted. It's like they're stunted in like teenage years. Yeah. And it's through their reactions and how they deal with problems and how they even focus on a problem and deal with it. You bring up a great point.
Yeah. And I don't see it getting any better. I mean, especially now we've got this woke culture of gender fluidity. I mean, it's frightening to me. It's wow. I just can't even put it into words because it's baffling to me, because it is such a blatant lie and such a distortion. And you know, our kids are swimming in it.
Oh, for sure. I mean, yeah, this is something we got to get into in the second hour. I even wrote it down on my notes that I think about what you're saying and how I can't even imagine for a young child to navigate in the world. I grew up without social media, and you know, it was tough enough. I can't even imagine having all of this social media bombard your child from such a young age. It's just hammering them from every direction. Parents, you know, are behind the 8 ball as it is, but really, the social media has done a number on everyone.
Yeah. Well, and our tech devices. Our tech devices. When you think about when the first cell phones and the first computers and all that kind of stuff, I mean, you know, we're talking 80s, 90s. I mean, these kids who were born during those times are saturated in technology, saturated in that gimme, instant gratification kind of things. You know, when I was raising my stepkids, we didn't watch TV. We had experiences. We did things, you know, and now you're using computers, you're using the iPad, you're using the phone as a babysitter.
So true.
And it's obnoxious. It's unconscionable.
Yeah. And then you wonder parents wonder why is my child the way they are? What happened? And it's like, what happened? You let them loose on the internet, unsupervised in most cases. Just you know, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, these ideologies and thoughts just don't get in there by accident. Right. You know, they're put in there, and then if parents aren't aware of that, and if I had a child, oh my God, I'd be monitoring every second they run the internet.
Me as well.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And you know, to not forget the levels of obesity and this sedentary way of being that most people in the Matrix, that's what they're doing. They're sitting around in front of their devices, getting programmed.
Yep. And health is deteriorating. They're getting bigger, which we're going to get into, because now, you know, this is another thing I have. And you just even start to say that people are, you know, it's evident people are getting obese and they're getting bigger. And, you know, it's just the truth. But you bring it up and all of a sudden, boy, you know, people start getting a little offended. Well, a lot offended. But it's just true. They do. It's just true.
They do.
Like health is, you know, health is deteriorating, and now it's like, you know, no matter what size you are, you're beautiful and stuff, and then you start to say, is really like
right.
Like, I mean, and I know it's a tough one, and it's going to offend people, but that's what we're here for. Yeah. We're just talking truth.
It is that sort of ridiculous notion. You know, I'm all about equality of opportunity, but the whole woke culture, cultural Marxism, is demanding equality of outcome. That is BS.
Right. Yeah. Great point.
You know, I'm all about a meritocracy, you know,
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I'm just looking at the time, Marty. We got like 30 seconds before a break, so I'm glad that we kind of ended on that.
Went fast.
I know. I always say I wish I had 3 hours or something, because it's usually when we start digging in is when the show starts to end. But we do have another hour, guys. Please stick around after this break. We got Marja West. Her channel is Love, Truth, and Beauty. Amazing content there. She gets into all of these topics that we're talking about in depth. So please, I will leave a link in the chat for you guys to go and check out her channel. And then please stick around for hour 2, guys. We'll be back in a few minutes. And our guest is Marja West.
Listen to Revolution Radio at freedomsbooks.com. We'll be right back.
Back, everybody. We are already here, hour 2. I cannot believe how quick that first hour went, but I'm so glad that we are here back, hour 2. My amazing guest, Marja West, and we are getting into a very important topic, and a lot of people find it uncomfortable, but it has to be talked about, and that is what is going on with relationships and the roles of men and women. And we're getting into the feminist movement, where its roots where its roots started, and what it has been progress, what is evolved into now from its inception. And, did it start off as a good thing? And was it hijacked along the way? And these are the discussions that Marja and I are having. And we're getting into a lot of things because, you just see how the family structure is being destroyed, how people are so confused when it comes to relationships and dating. I've had men say they don't even know what their role is in the relationship anymore. And then women are unhappy with the role that men are playing in the relationship. And there's all this confusion. And we've also heard women say that they don't need a man. They can do everything on their own. They don't need a man for anything. And I'm thinking, okay, like, true, maybe, but what are you sacrificing in return? There's always a sacrifice. You can't have it all. I know people are sold that lie, but you cannot have it all. And so you want to have a big, successful career and you're a super independent woman. What are you sacrificing? I would argue you're probably sacrificing a healthy relationship, a strong marriage, a family where you're close to your kids and spending as much time as possible because you're out chasing your career. I'm just saying that let's be honest, there are sacrifices that are made for your decisions, and there's consequences. And so let's get into this, Marja. I mean, as I was just saying, I talked to men, and I said at the first hour, people are confused. And when we're at a point where people don't even know their role in a relationship, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
This is the truth.
We are. We're in trouble. And I know that I work with a lot of folks who are endeavoring to get out there again, okay? Because they sacrifice some of their time in order to do that shadow work so that they can be good companions for themselves. Because if you're going to have a successful relationship, you really need to have a successful relationship with yourself,
yes,
where you are complete within and not coming from this pissy, angry thing of where I don't need a man, or I don't need a woman. It's like, stop it. Just stop. Because we all know that we want the same things. We want companionship. We want to be loved. We want to be seen. We want to be appreciated. We want to share our lives. And one of the first things that I tell people who are curious about what's going on with relationships is to get out of that space where you're looking at the superficial nonsense of blonde hair, big boobs, a nice butt. It's like, stop already. Stop it with the superficial nonsense. Mm-hmm. I always tell people, what are you bringing to the table? What are your values? Because if you don't match values with a significant other, that is what you find important, what your worldview is, what your morality is, you are in big trouble.
Yes.
Okay?
Yep.
Because when we succumb to these superficialities of physical appearance, okay, guess what? You're going to be one-ups. It's a recipe for disaster and unhappiness. Okay? That's number one. So you have to figure out what it is that you want. Do you want children? Does she want children? You know, what is the deal? You have to have these honest conversations. And when you're dating, you have to ask those questions right away, even before the first date.
I did
You're
that
not on the same page. Why bother?
I did that with my wife and I, Mary, when we started dating. I was at the point where I was like, I'm just gonna lay my cards out on the table like day one. Like I mean, what do I got to lose? I'm gonna be honest. And I was like, I don't, because and there's many reasons why I can't have children. I'm not gonna get into all of them, but I can't have children. So I said that to my wife from the time that we first date. I'm like, if you want children, I'm not your guy. I don't want them. And it's like, what? And then I started asking her, like, what are your values? She was very, very big in family. Family is most important. Like, you know, the family structure. I was like, okay, there we go. And then, but how many people even ask that on a first date? Some people probably never ask that till it's too late.
It's an absolute necessity to get these basic questions out of the way. So I'm going to tell people, if you don't have a relationship and you're looking for one, you need to sit down and you need to get really honest with yourself, and you need to create a bullet point presentation to yourself about what is important, because these points of shared values, shared worldview, shared morality, shared goals, okay? If you don't have common ground, what is the point? What is the point? There is no point.
Yeah.
You know, get off superficialities, people. Get off it.
You can't, these are things you can't wait. Like if you're dating for 6 months or a year and then you start asking these tough questions, I mean, that's a little late. So I figured, that's why I said, I'm going to do it right away. Like, let's get it. Like, it's, trust me, when people do this, guys, it's successful. Like, you learn very quickly. Like, if they say, no, I want to have 10 kids. Well, sorry, you may be cool, but this is going to be, it's going to lead to disaster. Either she's going to force me to have 10 kids, or somehow, or, you know, something's going to go wrong where there's resentment because she can't have these kids. And then that's where it starts.
And the compromise. Don't compromise your values.
Right. Yeah.
Don't do it. Yeah. You know, and too many of us are willing to compromise our values because we can't stand the sound of our own beating hearts. We need that to be drowned out by another person, or we need another person to complete us. You have to be a complete, whole person to have a successful relationship. These are just bottom basic lines here. Okay.
True. And very secure in your masculinity and your femininity, and and combining both. That's another thing. I think other people are so imbalanced on one or the other. There has to be this marriage between the both. It's really, it sounds simple. It is simple, but we've managed to confuse the hell out of it.
Because a lot of people will look at the masculine and feminine, that the masculine is a man, the feminine is a woman. No, that is incorrect. That is faulty thinking. It's faulty thinking, kids. You know, stop that kind of stuff. You have to stop it. There's going to be times where your significant other is going to be in charge and you're not. And you're going to interchange. There's going to be a flow between each of your masculine and feminines, and you are going to be complementary to one another, not adversarial. Okay? And that is part of the problem, is that divide. The masculine is a man, the feminine is a woman. It's just wrong.
Yeah, it's a blending. It's just that's the whole goal, I think, of our journey, is to blend these two and get them in harmony. And that's the lie that we've kind of been sold, is what you laid out, is
Yeah.
that you know, it's the man is just a man, and if he shows any emotion, he's a weakling, and blah 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 blah. And then if a woman shows any sign, and I'll even defend women, if they show any sign of strength, then they're, you know, they're being too manly and they're a butcher. You know, they got
Yeah.
labels for everything.
I know
And
the
it's
labels.
just-
My
Yeah.
goodness.
but it's, you said it right. It's this ebb and flow. It's this give and take that's going. I don't know. It's like, I look at it like a tide that comes
Yeah.
in and out, and then you know, sometimes you're strong, sometimes you need to be held up, and it goes back and forth. It seems it's working for me, so I don't know. What do I know?
Well, I think that's great. Now,
Yeah.
I'll ask you, how did you and your wife work it out? It just in terms of, you know, the ebb and flow, because we're not taught that necessarily. However, if we are gifted with parents who were actually quite reasonable and quite conscious in their own right, how they conducted themselves and their respect for one another, they can be great role models.
Yeah, and you're right too. And in my family structure, my dad was the alpha male. Like, if you think of a stereotypical male, my dad was my dad. Like, you didn't show emotions. You led with an iron fist. You know, and I learned a lot from that. That was positive. And then I learned from my mother the very compassionate, soft side, and but she could be strong. That's the thing about my mom. She could be strong when she needed to be, and you bet your ass, like, you did not want to push her into a corner. She knew when it was time to step it up a notch and kind of have that masculine, but it wasn't something she put forward all the time. And then I kind of, over the years, I've just learned in my relationship, it's like we keep saying, it's this blending, and you know, there's I said it again, it's like a broken record. I'm sure even Marja, you feel that way sometimes, but it's the truth. It's an ebb and flow thing. There's times when I need that I'm down and I need some picking up, and then there's times my wife needs some picking up, and then there's times that I got to be the strong one, she's got to be the strong one, and it's just this. That's the problem, is that people don't realize that, and that's why people are so confused in their roles. That's
so cool.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like, when it works, you know. It's just, and then you just see people. I see people in relationships really butting heads, like they're not on the same page. They're just butting heads all the time, and this arguing and constant back and forth. And a lot of the times, one partner's not listening. It comes down to a lot of, they're just not listening. And I'm like, okay, you maybe, or I should say, not hearing. There's a lot of people like sit there and look like they're listening, but they're not hearing what the person's saying.
Yeah.
You know, and this need to be right.
Out.
Yeah, and this need that you have to win the argument and be right all the time.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's not real. It's not true. Just isn't.
No, it really isn't real. And these are the we have to be honest that if we are in relationship, that when the red flags show up, that they be addressed immediately. Okay, because if they're not addressed, these are quite damaging, and they are very, very hurtful, heartbreaking, debilitating, and these are. It's really the kiss of death in a relationship when you have things like one of the big things that I see with couples, partnerships, and it doesn't matter, gay, bi, straight, there it is the sort of contemptuous attitude toward one another, or this sort of criticism, gaslighting one another, demeaning one another, put down. It's like, if that is your relationship, I really, really encourage you to get help. And if it's been going on for a long time, to get out. Because that kind of thing, that's not healthy. That is not, those are not the aspects of a healthy, loving relationship.
Yeah. You have to, you make a great point, the red flags. You have to address them right when they happen. And you see a lot of people just kind of like, you're right, it's just resentment. It builds up, and these red flags, you start burying them, ignoring them. They're gonna make it to the surface at some point. And it's always gonna be the worst time, in the middle of an argument or a fight. That all of a sudden, that's why you hear people. I've heard guys say, like, "Oh my God, my wife brought up something that happened 15 years ago." It may have happened 15 years ago, but it is still very, very much in the forefront of her thoughts.
Yeah,
it's there. It's truth.
Yeah. How do you two handle like conflict and disagreements?
We talk.
I'm curious.
We talk. It's just communication, and trust me, we do not agree on everything. We don't agree on everything. It's a really neat dynamic, but we can always talk, and then we always discuss things. And I think that's the best way. I'm like you. I just put it on the floor, like, get it out and talk about it. And it doesn't mean you have to agree on everything. I hate when people say, well, we don't agree on everything. I don't think that's a bad thing. We're individual people. But our principle, you make a great point. Our core principles and our core morality and stuff in that nature are very much in tune.
Yeah.
But of course, we're going to disagree on things. I mean, that's what.
Yeah, I mean, that's just part of human nature.
It really is. It's part of a relationship. But yeah, that's kind of how we do it. I mean, I really over all these years, I can't even think of it, Marja. I'm just being honest. We've never had a big, huge blow up where the doors slam. Yeah, like doors slamming, and one of us is like, "I'm going to my parents' place. How will you?" Boom, slam. Never like that. We've had some heated discussions.
Yeah. That's how it is between me and my guy as well. It's like we're very compatible. We have the same worldview. We have the same morality. We have the same family values. We also have a very similar communication style. And of course, there are marked differences between men and women. Women, we speak feelings. That's all there is to it.
Very true. Yeah, internalize everything.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with it. Nope, and my guy, he is a man of very, very few words. And so our differences in terms of, I emote, I wear my feelings on my sleeve. People know I can't pretend. I cannot pretend. I'm not in my head. I'm very in my body. I'm very emotional, but I'm also very, very logical. My guy, he might appear aloof, but he's feeling things very, very deeply. And I think it's important to understand your relationship styles. Those have to be very, very compatible. Because if they're not compatible, then there's not going to be a lot of common ground in terms of being able to discuss things. One of the biggest things that I hear from couples is the whole notion of stonewalling. Now, stonewalling is, when there's a conflict and one person just digs in and just is like, nope, I'm not talking about it. I'm not here for that.
That drives me crazy.
And you're not going to get anywhere with somebody like that. It's not going to be good because there is no bridge to cross to meet up halfway to work that out and sort out a conflict. And of course, these are things that we can learn. And like I said, we learn through learning about ourselves, having a good relationship with our own being. And that's a tough one. That's a tough one because it really requires some, not just the audacity and the courage to face some things about ourselves that we might not like, okay, but also requires a lot of empathy and a lot of softness and the willingness to do that inner work, that inner shadow work that, you and I have talked about this in other podcasts where the shadow work is like really, when there is conflict and we are in relationship, a lot of the times these conflicts are mirrors back to those shadow parts of us that need to be healed, that need to be addressed, that need to be retrieved and really owned, because we can't leave these parts of us, these parts that we don't like, we can't leave them behind. We take them with us forward in all of our relationships and all the things that we do, our creativity.
Absolutely. You're so right too. And that's a lot of the times too, is when you see these conflicts arise, and that a lot of the times you're right. It's something that it's bothering you about yourself, and it's just kind of emoting, and it's expressing in that way during the heat of the moment. But it's truly, the roots of it lie with something deep inside yourself. Yeah. And how many people are really even taking time to get to know, and it sounds crazy, I always say this, but how many people even really know who they truly are and get to know themselves? Mm-hmm. Yeah. And especially with social media now, where everything's just coming a million miles an hour, and nobody's spending time just to be alone with themselves. People fear that. I can sit by myself for hours. It's fine.
I know, me too.
I love myself. I don't get it. So yeah, but people, they need all this distraction, and then what are they doing? There's once again a sacrifice that if you keep yourself distracted constantly, you're not in tune with who you are.
Yeah, and it's complete avoidance.
That great word, yeah.
Complete avoidance, and this is where I have so much compassion for men, because men are typically programmed to just kind of gloss over, not be very introspective, not do the shadow work, men's work. But I know a lot of men are doing that work. They are doing that shadow work. And a lot of them are doing it in secret because they don't feel supported by their comrades, their brothers, okay? Because there is such a sort of block to it for whatever reason. And I'm not a man. I'm just simply reiterating what I have been told, where there's so much guilt and shame, the S word, shame, around men feeling very inadequate emotionally, very inadequate in terms of owning to a lack of self-awareness, perhaps. Yeah. A lot of guilt and shame about the sexuality that has been really just kind of forced upon them. I interviewed my friend Paul Abramovich, who just came out with this book. Well, actually, it's a couple years old now. It's called Sexed, hardwired by nature, evolving by choice. And he lays out this. It's a map. It's a map, pretty much, about the development of sex hormones that, guess where it begins? Inside the mother's womb. So it's not just about the hormonal infiltration of all the sex hormones that differentiates masculine and feminine, boys and girls, men and women. It's also about the collective infusion coming from our DNA, our psychic DNA of human history, and the tribal lineages of our mothers and fathers and everybody who came before.
It's all in there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's all in there. And so this broad spectrum understanding of the differences between men and women and the similarities. I mean, it's a huge undertaking, and I don't think that humanity, men and women, I don't think we can afford to not understand and not undertake this vast work, that vast inner work of understanding the hormonal mechanisms and, perhaps dispelling biology as destiny, etc., and also dispelling our mind control programs or tribal programs as destiny as well. So this is about becoming very conscious about, about who you are. So your point to what you were saying, that a lot of people don't even know who they are, don't even know what makes them tick.
That's so true.
These are
It's
basics.
true. Yeah. And I'm like that. Anything that, especially what I'm aware of, is if I hear something or I hear a word or anything, that I get this immediate reaction where, it's kind of like, ooh, like you just, that jerk reaction, that knee jerk reaction. That's when I want to dive into it. Why am I having this reaction? Like why? It didn't get there. Yeah. And how many people are even aware or even care? Like if they have that reaction, they just blow up. They have this reaction, whatever the reaction may be, but they don't really dive into why they're having it.
Yeah. No, it's an avoidance thing once again. And you bring up a really, really wonderful point about being able to hold that space of being triggered without losing consciousness, and having the curiosity of looking into what this reactivity is about. Okay, because a lot of this reactivity that we have, particularly in pop culture, with the media frenzy and the manipulation of information, and all of the sort of meme wars and all that kind of stuff, what it's doing is it's triggering our psychic DNA. And when we have that trigger, we're having these atavistic memories being triggered. Unfortunately, this atavism that gets triggered is non-specific, because we have a whole history in our human history and prehistory that is non-specific. It is all mishmash into one pile of triggers.
Yeah.
And you have to look into it. Is this really something that I really need to be upset about? Or am I being purposefully manipulated?
Exactly.
You have to check it out. And you have to discern, and you have to decide, I'm not giving that my attention. Okay? Because that's how we lose consciousness. That's what the Matrix does. The Matrix wants to distract you and get you to usurp your conscious attention from what's important to you to what is important to it, to keep you in check. So you don't think for yourself. You don't dare research, go down a rabbit hole, question reality, question your feelings, question your beliefs.
That's that's so huge what you're saying, and it's the truth. That's why I do it. Like, and I always ask myself, like, where did this belief come from? Where did this thought come from? These, like I keep saying, they don't get in there just on their own. And a lot of it now is definitely when I was growing up, a lot of it, of course, is around the people you're around, your parents. A lot of it gets in that way, your teachers. But now this is a whole, and I keep saying, social media is so new, relatively new to humanity, that we're just starting, I really think, Marja, to see the results. This is going to manifest in even worse ways than we could ever think of the damage that's being done by this bombardment, and how many people are just getting triggered because of stuff they've been told to get triggered by through social media.
Exactly. And then they don't question it.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, why are you mad? I don't know. I was told to get mad at that. I don't know. It's like crazy.
I know. I make it a game, and because I touch in. I don't watch the news or anything, but every now and again, I can feel my head get sucked in to the screen, and I literally have to extricate myself, like consciously go, step away from the vehicle, move along.
Yeah.
It's a train wreck. It doesn't concern you. Wake up. Let's go. Let's go. Move along, move along. And I have to reestablish my focus on what is important. And that's what we have to do. When it comes to relationships, one size does not fit all, which is why I tell people, do some homework, find out what your values are, find out what you want, find out what you have to offer to someone, okay? And be complete within. You know, it's like you're working those hermetic principles. The first and second ones in particular, by really up leveling the way you see yourself, the way you think of yourself, the way you see other people. Because everybody that is outside of you is going to be a reflection of what you are within.
Yes.
And if your outer reality is reflecting some shit show, I can guarantee that that show that is shite is within you. Because when you're working the hermetic principles, it's all on you. And you got to stay within and you got to clean that up. That's what the shadow work is for. And that's what these journaling exercises are for, is so you get really clear on what it is that you want, and you're not kowtowing to some narrative that was shoved down your throat or something that you heard from somebody else or on some TV show, some sitcom or whatever, and because you don't want any of that stuff to be your template for relationship. And I hear a lot of people talk about their relationships, and they'll mention some TV series, and I've learned to roll my eyes without moving them because I know it's rude, and you know, and I don't want to minimize somebody's experience, but by cracky, you know, when I hear that stuff, I'm praying. I am praying to Odin for intervention. Because it's insane. It's just insane.
Well, the relationships they put out there, Marja, are in the series, TV series and movies, it's just not real.
No, they're not good.
Yeah, and they're not good. And then you start trying, and then the problem is that people see this, and then they're like, "Well, I want a relationship like that," and I'm like, "They don't. It's not real. Like,
No.
You know, they're selling this lie that people have bought into, and I mean, I get why you roll, you know, you kind of hear that and you're like, oh my God, because it's like, you know, this is a script you're watching. It's not real life, and even reality shows aren't real.
Yeah,
I mean, none of it is. It's just you know, lie that people are being sold, and I'm glad we're diving into that because I think this is a lot of what's going on. And as I was saying earlier, we're in trouble. Like, and I mean, and I want to get your thoughts, Ray, like on a couple of things. Like, I want, like, you hear this, that, you know, we were talking about how women say they can do it on their own and they don't need a man in that. And you see a lot of single, you know, mothers raising their kids. There's no man in the house. What are your thoughts on the importance of having the family together, man, woman, raising a child together? How important is that, do you think?
I think it is uber important. And we can create whatever family that we want. But a lot of the bottom line that I hear from women who are doing it on their own is they are pissed off. So they are lying to themselves, as far as I can tell. It's a default. It's a default pattern. And my suggestion, whether you're a man or a woman in that single capacity and doing it all on your own, is you need to check your resentment.
Right. Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people are lying to themselves. It is a default. And, you know, I've heard women say, well, you know, it's just me and my dog and my cat. And, you know, I mean, it is such a stereotype. And it is unfortunate. And I'm not saying that these women and men have no, that their experience has no bearing on it. That's just the point. It does, which means that you have to look at what it is that you're up to and what it is that you're not up to. And you have to get good with it, because I hear these things, and it is laced with resentment, it's laced with defensiveness, it's laced with contempt, and it's laced with criticism of how the other failed them.
Right. Yes.
And we got to go back to the drawing board every single time, because if you're still going there to a previous relationship, that is your template for relationship.
Mm-hmm.
You got to tell a different story. You've got to up-level your mindset. You know,
that's so
as
true.
above, so below, from within, so without. So there you go. It's all on you. And that pisses a lot of people. I have a lot of women come after me. They just get in my face. You should be ashamed of yourself. You're a woman. I've had to navigate humility, people, where I have seen the really, really naughty things, the less than stellar, the less than enlightened shit shows that I have created based on my own unconsciousness and my defending myself of that unconsciousness. You know, and you just can't get away with it.
That's powerful. Accountability is huge.
Yeah, it is huge.
It's so huge.
Adulting.
Yeah. And you hear people do that. Like, you hear people make excuses. And I will say that this goes in both male and female. You hear women, making excuses for themselves and their men. And then also you hear men, making excuses for women's behavior.
Yeah.
And it's just, but never really, it's always excuses and justification of what's happened. And it's always somebody else's fault.
Yes. And that is part of the gynocracy. Okay, because as long as the gynocracy can keep the battle going between men and women, they win. Okay, they win. And how does the gynocracy do it? By having, Michael Tsarian calls it the chivalric male. These are the men, the yes men, committed to the goddess, regardless of whether the goddess is really a goddess or an asshole. Okay.
Right.
And that's how women get away with it, because you have these men who are not really men. They've kind of been stepped on, but they know how to work it so that they can get what they want. Okay.
Right. And they back the woman no matter how atrocious her behavior is. So that's like the modern day simp.
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And he comes in all kinds of shapes and sizes.
Right, yeah.
But we don't need to be sycophants for each other's really, really bad behavior. We need to hold each other high, to the highest level, which means we call each other out, and we don't do it disrespectively. We don't name call. We don't do any of that. We treat each other with respect and compassion. And if that respect and compassion is not reciprocated, you get out. You just call it. That person is not conscious enough for me. And sometimes that is the case.
And you make a great point too, like how you would call it out. Like, definitely, I think anybody's behavior, male, woman, if you should be called out on your bullshit. It just, and it should be, you should be, and no excuses made, no justifications, no pointing the finger. You see everybody pointing the finger outwardly, never inwardly, never taking any accountability for you're in the position you are in your life by your decisions. That's the facts.
Yes.
You are where you are. I'm where I am. You're where you are. The people listening, you are sitting where you are right now by decisions that you made. And that's just the truth. But, a lot of people won't say that. They'll say, oh, this happened and it's their fault. And
that's a victim mentality.
That's how people think now.
Yeah, well, and they're stuck in the matrix. And you keep that attitude, you're going to be forever stuck in the matrix, and your relationships are going to match that attitude. And I call it relationships. Because that's kind of what it is. You're not relating. You're not being relational. Okay? you're basically crapping on another person.
Yeah.
And they're doing the same to you, okay? Because and some people they're just addicted to drama. I know plenty of people who are addicted to their psychosexual drama, and they are complete sycophants of what I call the relationship, romantic, sexual, industrial complex. They love that drama, okay? They love it. They love chasing their orgasms, chasing their unattainable, horrifying men and women. They love it. And they can't get enough. They love that misery. Misery loves company. I mean, it is pretty true.
That is true. And a lot of the times, too, when I see my friends that are in the dating scene, like it's, the dating apps, I could do another whole show on that. I think this is the worst idea that we've come up with in a long time, what they're promoting. And they're, what are they promoting? Like, basically, people they've skipped the whole dating process. Let's just get right to the sex. That's basically what you're looking at as a hookup.
It's hookup culture.
That's all it is. Yeah. And they promote that.
And heaven forbid you catch feelings. Wow.
Yeah, that's bad. Yep.
It's kind of frightening. It's kind of frightening. I immersed myself for 2 weeks back in what year was this? It had to be 2017. It was right before my big trip across the pond for my book tours. But I did the 2 weeks on 3 dating apps.
Oh no, how'd that go?
Oh my God. It was pretty frightening because I went to all those questions, those pre-screening questions,
yeah,
and every one of them lied. They lied, and so it was pretty funny because I had to check myself because I work the principles and I had to own it. It's like, okay, so second principle of correspondence: how are these guys mirroring to me what's going on within? And I had to own it. I was getting ready to leave America for 3 years. I had no business being out there in the dating scene. So I caught myself in my own bullshit, and it was pretty funny. And you're going to love this because the last day that I was in, I go to the restaurant, and this is fab. This is so fabulous. And I'm waiting. And all of a sudden, here's this woman, but it's clearly not a woman. It's a man with a 5 o'clock shadow, trying to rock a form-fitting dress in Zanotti heels. Now, I know my shoes. I know my designer shoes, and I realized that is my date. That is my date. And it was my date. And so he comes up to me, and he mispronounces my name, calls me Marja. It's like, oh, you are so in trouble, dude. And I just went, I go, this situation, and I, just kind of like waved my hand over the whole outfit and the whole thing. This guy's 6'2" with a 5 o'clock shadow in a form-fitting dress in Zanotti heels, slingbacks, by the way. And I'm thinking, what is this person thinking? Like, and I said, if you wanted me to come in drag, I would have done it. But this is not your presentation. And I opened my phone, and I want to take a picture. And he slaps the phone. It slaps the phone out of my hand, and it cracks the screen. And I'm thinking, wow. So, long story short is that I had no business going out on dates because I wasn't even going to be around, So I was being a jerk, essentially. So these guys matched my jerkiness, and I had to own it.
It's a good way to think about it, though. But I mean, also, I think about when I think of dating apps, I think of social media, the lies that are told, and now with people like taking selfies and you know, you'll see you'll see people on Instagram or something, and then you'll see their pictures that they're putting up, and with all these filters, and then you see them in person.
It's not even real.
Yeah, you're like, that. You don't look anything like that picture. Like, it's crazy, and I didn't even really notice this until I started a few years ago, and I would see like my friends, they were dating different girls, and you would look at the girl when you met them. They, like, my friend would bring this date around to meet, like, introduce me to them, and I'd look at them in real life, and I'd look at their Instagram. I'm like, whoa, like, what are you doing? Like, and they filter themselves to death, and so I mean, you're already starting on a lie. I mean, that's your.
Exactly.
And it's like, wow, I'd just rather see, can I really see what you look like?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, isn't that so much to ask?
Oh my gosh.
You know, we come from the time when you, we came from a time when you went out on a date and you met the person, you got to know them.
That's right. I have a zit on my forehead. That's right.
Yeah, it's like
bigger than life.
Yeah, and you would meet people and get to know them, and with these dating apps, and it just not even with dating apps, it's just the way dating is set up. It's just so not healthy. I mean, it's just these. I think women are, you know, having sex with too many people. I think it's a lot.
Way too much.
Yeah, and they promote it.
Here's the thing, ladies and gents. Okay, the energy exchange, the energy dump that occurs in unconscious casual sex, you cannot minimize it. You really can't. Because if it isn't clean, and I'm not a prude, I'm not coming from that. I'm talking from an energetic standpoint. Spiritual hygiene, okay? That is substantive. You are going to absorb everybody that they were with, and everybody these people were with on top of it. It is an energetic shit show to have unconscious sex.
Yeah.
And it's disgusting. I know for myself, because I'm a child of the 70s and the 80s, free love. I have an open marriage the first time around. I mean, we're talking some really messed up choices. And I've gone through a couple of rounds of intense celibacy. The last one was almost 10 years, just to purify and get good with myself, because of the energetic dump. It's a cesspool. It's not good. And
10 years, though, that's a long time.
Yes, it is. And I did a lot of creative things. You know, I put out a lot of music. I created courses. It didn't even occur to me, because I was so fed up. I was so sick of myself, and I was so sick of the whole scene. Okay. And it takes time. It takes time to purify the body, mind, the heart, mind, body, soul coordination. You have to get good with that. And, you know, it was really, it's soul work.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most people, they're not going to be able to do it. They're not going to be able to do it because they are addicted to the feedback from any kind of sexual encounter. And that is part of some major malignant sexual shadow stuff that a lot of people are not willing to face. And I will go so far as to say that a lot of the energetics that are directly related to various cancers in the sex organs, okay, and also in the major organs, has a lot to do with the energetic corruption that you are allowing in your body through these unconscious relationships, whether they are sexual or not. It's the unhealed heartbreak, the unhealed rage, the unhealed betrayal, the on and on and on and on and on in these repetitive cycles of unfulfilling relationships because you can't stand to be alone.
Yeah. I've touched on this in a few of my shows, but maybe I'll have to get you on sometime for a part 2 to get into what you just spoke about, because I've touched on it, because I'm starting to see the connection. And you bring up this is huge point that you bring up, and it's, of course, it's near the end of the show. This always happens, by the way. We get into this great topic right when the show's ending soon, but it's something to look forward to when I get you back on again. If you would love to come, I would love to have you back on, because you bring up something I think is so important that people don't even think about. And I've been really focusing on this for a while, is that you make a great point in that all of these interactions that we're having, and I'm glad you said sexual or not sexual. It doesn't have to be sexual. The people that you're allowing in, the people you're allowing into your life, and these toxic environments we're putting ourselves in and exposing ourselves to are definitely weighing on our health.
Yeah,
absolutely. And they affect different organs. I've been looking into this. It's crazy, but it does. Different traumas are affecting different organs they're finding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really interesting to me.
Yeah. And, hopefully the medical community will start getting hip to it.
Oh, good luck. Anyway.
Yeah, good luck with that.
I know. I mean, if it's not a pill to fix the problem right away, I mean, put a Band-Aid on a problem and not dive into it. But I'm really glad that you brought that up, because that would be a great topic to really unpack, because I just think of all the talk and what they're selling it, because we're kind of talking about the sexual part of it. And I see what what young people are, and everybody's growing up around, and the way they've sold sexuality to men and women. I was around in the 80s, much like you, where it was all sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Oh, yeah.
Just bang as many people as you want, and just live life to the fullest. There's consequences to that. And then I think of another topic that even is the porn industry, how that's taken over. This is affecting both. It's twisting relationships. It has to be.
It's energy harvesting. You're harvesting creative, sexual, life force energy through pornography.
Great point. Yeah. And just think of how rampant that is. And how it's just twisting. I mean, think of all the twisted views, especially younger people have no experience, and then how God knows how old they're getting exposed to it. It's probably a super young age. And then how that's shaping, like, how they think a relationship is, and how sex is, and the meaning of it. They're how it's very dangerous. And it's rampant.
It is very, very, very dangerous.
Wow.
And it's not real. It just isn't real.
That's true too. Yeah. That's not how it is. Wow. I mean, we definitely, we got to do that part 2. I would love to get you back on and in the future soon.
You got it. Just let me know.
Yeah, and dive into some more of these topics. I'm glad that we touched in on the feminism and, whether it was hijacked, how we kind of went back further. We can still dive into it more, because I just really think that people are being lied to on so many levels.
Yeah.
And you have to see it
to themselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's really, really easy to do, because when it comes to being in pain and feeling isolated, feeling really disenfranchised and forgotten, it's easy to do.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we definitely got topics for the next time you're on. And let everybody know, please. I want to give you the last minute and a half to let everyone know where they can find your content, what you're working on now, anything that you need to let people know. The floor is yours.
So the best place to find me is on the YouTube. My channel is LoveTruth&Beauty. I also have a website, LoveTruth&Beauty.com. Okay. You can find me on the Facebook. I am working on the video series regarding the Gynocracy, the dark feminine cult, the malignant dark feminine cult. Not a very, very popular topic, but my intention is to really free us up and really start thinking in terms of how we can stop manipulating each other, and we can stop being manipulated. And I think that is an important piece. And especially in where I am in my life at this point, being the oldster, the senior citizen, so to speak. And I thank you, Rick. I mean, we always have these great conversations.
Yes.
And it's been like really, really fun.
Absolutely.
And I will include a book list too. I'll put that together.
Okay.
And I'll send that to you because I think it's important for people to start investigating things for themselves and start reading and going down various rabbit holes and checking things out.
Right. Yeah. I think that's so important too. Like to really start like taking the time to, educate yourself and to get honest with yourself about what you see around you, what's going on in your life. All great advice. I'm going to make sure that we put your website. I'm going to make sure I put a link in the chat right now to your website, to your YouTube channel. Please, guys, check out her work. She covers so many of these topics that we dove into. She goes more in depth with them. So please go check it out, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, Marja.
Thank you.
You're amazing. You're amazing.
My pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Remember, Thursday night, I'm back here with Jonathan, Patrick, and Jonathan show.
All right, darlings. I hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for hanging out with us. And until next time, here is to Love, Truth, and Beauty. Mwah! Ciao, Bellas.